have a good panel today. Coming to the panelist also, if I look at the profile of the panelist, that also pretty good. Like there are our Lopamudra, Bineet, and Manoj. All three are little lopsided because all three are from the financial sector, where Suhas is the only person who is from the service provider perspective. So good. So we'll have a broader perspective from Suhas also because I know him and I also know this company, though they are into the business of providing security services. The way things are happening today, the dependence on digital landscape has increased manifold. Never ever it happened if the digital infrastructure fails, there will be a problem in the health services. People cannot get the proper health services. So that is the kind of dependency in the digital landscape. And in a way, because of this pandemic and all, the digital transformation is kind of accelerated, and there are so many things happening in the digital space. When so many things are happening, the attack surface also is growing. A lot of attacks also they are happening, and when attacks happens, threat happens, digital landscape grows, then cyber security investment also grows. When cyber security investment grows, that is something which is asked by everybody, that what is the desired state of cyber security, because there is no limit for cyber security investment. In fact, everybody will ask that how much is sufficient for us. So this is the question which perpetually asked by everybody who are into the managing cyber security, or who are into the managing the business. So I just want to put this thought as an open thought and start discussing from Suhas.
Many times when we are talking with CIOs or CISOs, their ask is how I can do end-to-end security for my entire assets. It covers underlying infrastructure, applications, and all the digital payments ecosystem outside of their control. So how I can secure that? So there are primary, when we are talking with these guys, we are suggesting that they should first see all the application and infrastructure component security. Additionally, there are compliance framework. So in India, all the regulatory compliances, that is a mandate. These are the three things they should cover at most now. Now there is a new paradigm shifting. So where cyber defense, it covers everything, all the offensive security, threat intelligence, threat hunting, then forensic capabilities. These are the mandatory things which we are recommending to most of our clients so that they can secure their environment and accordingly they can take it this ahead to board. So this is what we are proposing, sir.
Okay, so Binit, to you the same questions. So I'm yet to get the some thread to take it forward in terms of what is that desired state of security. Is this the same for every company, or it is different from all other companies? Financial sector is different. Financial sector, insurance it is different. Financial sector, the card associations like you, this is different. So what is that? What is that? How do you really convince the management that this is what you need?
So to your question, sir, I think I'll answer that in two folds. Number one is the kind of data each of the organization today manage based on the sector they are operating out of, based on the region that they are operating out of. The criticality and importance of that data is critical for any organization. Now, if I talk about a healthcare organization sitting out of US versus a healthcare organization sitting out of India, you'll see a difference because there are specific regulations which are there within the US geography, which are governed through HIPAA and other regulations, where the data criticality and others are quite important in nature. Whereas when you compare to an industry which is in India, which is in the similar domain, you'll see that the information that has been processed and managed here is completely different. And then since there is no regulation specific to the PII or PHI data for now, you see that there are data is flowing anywhere, everywhere, and then people are using it and then it's getting sold into an open market straight away. Now that begins the differentiation factor. Now, as an organization, while you're looking at some of these pieces, you have to understand the regulatory obligation first. The second is that while you are convincing, you're talking to your board, you need to understand the board, are you giving a complete perspective about the organization, or are you talking about a region? Because based on the regulations, based on the contractual obligations you have with your client, your customers, the sensitivity of the data will vary across different regions. Now, to handle that, how we have actually taken it up, we have created a framework and a solution in the organization, and then this is an external solution that we have procured. And now Mastercard is actually using it as providing services to our financial sectors organizations also
Oh,
using the
very
same
good.
solution. Now, how the solution works is that takes inputs from the various regions. So it will take inputs from your demographic region. So where you are operating out of, what kind of a sector are you in? Then the second piece that it will take into consideration is it will understand your information system that is there. What kind of information that you are using? How are you managing? Which location are you keeping this data, and what is the complexity of that data? Now, based on that, and then we do a self-assessment based on the frameworks because of NIST, CSX, CSF, and then ISO 27001, and then CIS. We have created a holistic framework in the organization. Now we do a self-assessment across the organization, and then we take intelligence feeds from different sources. So we have a solution which we have created in the organization, which takes different sources from different threat landscape, where all the attackers, how they are trying to penetrate into your different regions, different geographies, different sectors. So we take some of these inputs. Now the solution mix up everything. There is an algorithm that has been set into this solution, which gives you a definite maturity score. It will tell you on a scale of 1 to 5 where you stand as an organization. And it also helps you in terms of tracking on a day in, day out basis. How is your maturity moving? So let's say if in case you're in quarter one, you are sitting at
Yeah,
somewhere around 2.6.
Vinit, I'll come back to that. While you have tossed a very important point that compliance regulations that plays a great role in terms of convincing the management what exactly you need in terms of security. Dr. Lopamudra, my questions to you is there are two narratives coming. One is, of course, the legal requirement, the regulatory requirement, the compliance requirement is one narrative. The second narrative is, of course, very complementary to that, is talking about the threat, talking about the uh, vulnerability, a threat-centric approach. So, what do you think that one should approach in terms of convincing the management, the economics of cybersecurity? That yes, you should invest in cybersecurity.
Very quick question. Now, just getting before that state, first of all, there is nothing called wrong or right about the desired cybersecurity state. It depends on the organization to organization based on which, how you are operating, which sector you are in. So generally, it's what is the technology is in use, what kind of platform you are operating from, who are your end user, as well as who are your support provider and third party. That is the entire surface you need to look at. Secondly, it is very, very important that we should invest enough to understand that we have a very good visibility of our data, through what are the channels data is flowing back and forth, who are the people touching our data, up to what extent. So that is basically need to be considered while we are looking to invest on the cybersecurity. So when we are protecting the data, it is very important for us to protecting the infrastructure on which the data hosted. Now, while operating in the different region of the world, different organization specific to their sector, specific to their stack, may need to go by, may need to comply with certain compliance as well as regulatory requirement, because both are different. And while doing that, we need to also see that, is there any specific law or regulation or compliance directly asking you to comply, or there are some requirements related to regulatory requirement or compliance requirement there is no direct direction, but there is indirect direction that you need to take care of that. For example, if we look at Company Law of India, right, that is Company Act, is directing you to conduct the technology risk assessment. Same way, if I look at the IT Act of India, it's talking about the data protection and privacy indirectly. Again, if we look at the fundamental rights, that is giving you the data protection rights of the people. So we need to look in a holistic perspective of that region. That is one thing. Another is, yes, security is something is mandatory, because it is not the addressing regulatory or compliance need, it is protecting your business. Unless your business is secure, you would not be able to address the requirement of your stakeholders. So one should know the attack surface or the cyber portfolio of the organization very well to address the different kind of attack they are prone to, or their industry is prone to, or the region is prone to, and build the ecosystem to defend them and build the protection. When it is coming to the protection, three angles we need to look at. Do they have a specifically, protection mechanism which is proactive? Do have a reactive mechanism also? If I have a proactive mechanism, that doesn't mean that I don't require a reactive mechanism. Certain time it is also in certain scenario it is also helpful. Also, do we after that are we able to build the predictive capacity? And while we are doing that, how we are connecting with the different support system within the available around you. So these are the components we need to look for.
No, no, yeah, understood, madam. So quickly, Manoj, your views on whatever all these three panelists have told is essentially how to really what you need to do for cyber security. So, but I'm yet to get a very objective thread where we don't have an open budget for cyber security. You cannot go and ask that I need 100 crore budget. So what is that trick one should do in terms of convincing the management that this is so many important points have been covered by these people. So shortly, what is your view from a insurance perspective, that how do you really convince the management that this is what is required for cyber security? Maybe sometimes it can grow beyond 10% or 15% of the technology budget, but that is where you have to convince the management, and that is where the economics of cyber security lies. Manoj.
Yeah, thanks. It's a very complex and tricky question. But so far, so convincing management is concerned, we really thankful to the regulatory bodies. Most of the job is already done. But what personally I have taken it up that I applied quantitative risk assessment, and I converted my hyper convergent language to business. Very simple language. And I did some analysis. I told this kind of risk we are into, there may be a situation where due to cyber attack, the organization's solvency can be impacted. And during tough time when solvency is nearby my hard limit, we may require additional this percent of pi as working capital for the organization. So the less investment you have in cybersecurity, the more working capital you have to reserve to meet the solvency guidelines. So this is how I applied my thought process before my board of directors, my CEO, and also what kind of budget I require and what kind of risk that is going to cover. Because even if somebody come and tell me you take 1,000 crore and guarantee security, it cannot be done. So the risk level can be brought down from X level to Y level, the investment is maybe say 1 crore rupees, but we are going to minimize the risk of maybe 10 crore rupees. So this is how the value
Excellent,
can be brought
excellent,
into. Yeah.
excellent, Manoj. Very good thoughts. Excellent thoughts. So you took the risk management way of talking the business language and convincing the management that this is what you need for security. So Vinit, back to you, taking a thread from Manoj. So now that you need to do that, you don't wish that the SolarWinds like threat happens, or you don't wish like RBI comes with a lot of regulations or law comes for security, then only you go and ask for the budget. Budget should be essentially a Greek centric budget. So, and we always should wish that irrespective of all those things, we should be able to put forth our agenda. So, beneath your view on how we should really, so what is that governance, information security governance, which is the requirement? How that should be, what should be the framework for a right information security governance? And since CISOs are going and meeting the board, that what is that CISO needs to do, what transformation or what reform rather CISO should be doing. They cannot go and define risk in terms of cyber security risk. They have to define risk in terms of the business risk. So how do
Correct.
they talk business language and orient themselves to be hard in the board?
So I think while I was explaining about the process that Mastercard adopted, I think the digital assets that we were talking about, that was more of a business risk. So based on the kind of information that you have across the organization, the data set that is available, what is your crown jewel across the organization. So you need to, as an organization, you need to first identify those. You have to list down these some of the. Now, if I say that the earlier process where we used to do a qualitative risk analysis and then we used to do prioritization and then we used to go ahead and do a risk mitigation, was that the approach that every organization should adopt today? I think some of the organization may still continue to adopt that process in terms of prioritizing the risk, but however that may not be suffice in the given scenario today, because the kind of digital assets that we own today have a difference in the approach to what we were following almost like 5-7 years back. Now, with the set of criticality that has happened, and then the way the cyber attacks have started happening on most of the organization, and then there is not a hidden truth that most of the organization is all depends upon when are we going to get attacked. So I think given that kind of an thought in mind, the organization cannot today rely on one specific framework and say that, okay, if I adopt let's say an ISO, I am going to be 100% being safe from any kind of a cyber attack. It has to be an holistic approach. It has to be a mix of all the relevant standards and framework which are there. Depends upon because, and then also that standard and framework cannot be adopted just for the sake of adoption. You have to understand your business. You have to understand the region that you're operating. You have to take into account again the kind of compliances what Dr. Lopa has talked about. You have so many different PCI DSS, PAP. In a financial sector like us, we have a lot of standards and framework that we need to follow, like PCI DSS, PADSS, PCI PIN, and others like that. And then there are a lot of regulatory guidelines specific to region. So if I am operating out of US, I have to follow HIPAA. If I am following into somewhere like UK, there is GDPR. So I have to take everything into one parameter and then create a framework holistic for the organization. Today, I may not be able to say that, okay, this framework or that framework is going to really suffice my business requirement. I have to look at holistically, taking into account the region that we are operating, the kind of attack surface, as I was talking about, each region have a different set of attack surface. If I am staying close to China, I can see a more of an attack originating from there rather than versus a region that I'm close to, NIA, for example. So I think we have to take into that all those pieces into consideration. The threat intelligence piece, the regulatory guidelines, the assets that you have, the digital assets, and then on top of that you have to create a framework, and then you have to approach the board and say that, okay, see, this is what we have taken into consideration. This is the current control environment that exists in my environment. This is the gap what I foresee in my organization, and to fulfill this is the kind of investment that I need. And again, board obviously will come back state, okay, what is the financial, what is the number that you, then you have to project based on your SWOT analysis. You cannot do everything in one go. Again, you have to prioritize those risks. Based on the risk prioritization, you have to put into order that what is that you're going to do in year 1, what is that you're going to do in year 2, what is that you're going to do in year 3. And based on that, you have to give a roadmap to the board that, see, this is where, if you want to reach to this desired state with the set of complexities that exist in your organization with for your environment, this is the kind of budget and investment that you need to put in. And I think that should be the approach.
Good, Binit, giving a very comprehensive way. I'll tell you, before I go to Dr. Lopamudra, because he has been in various industries. Frankly, what happens is, I'm sure you all have experience, you hardly get half an hour time for the board. So you need to put forth your agenda within that half an hour time, and you cannot get another meeting in next 1 month or so. So what I am passionately convinced, which is like talking their language is the most important thing. They would understand that you understand their business, you are concerned for that business. If you are in a refinery business, you should talk about refinery margin. If you are in insurance, you should talk about their language. If you are in your business, you should talk their language, smartly talk that language. You should appear to be knowing that business. So, madam, you have been into various businesses. You have been into Nissan, you have been into so many other companies, big companies, global companies. So, what's your trick? That how do you really relate yourself to the board and make them feel that you understand their business as well as the threat to the business within that 30 minutes time, which is given to you, or even less than that? 30 minutes is a comfort.
So this is very important, right? When you are going to provide that to board, you need to be ready, you need to be aligned with the business, and you need to be addressing the requirement which you have, right, in a RICS language. So specifically, one need to have a strategy which is completely aligned with the organizational strategy and the business. You need to demonstrate that how you are going to support different activity of the organization. Every organization require a security budget to protect the business. So while you are going through that, there are different buckets. First bucket is the compliance requirement of the organization and regulatory requirement of the organization. So see that what part of the portfolio need you can cover under that case. This is the topmost requirement of any organization. So you push those requirements under that bucket. What remaining you have in your hand, you can look at them, prioritize them based on the risks of the organization, align them with the operational risks and brand risks of the organization. That is the two area. They are very consistent. Even the brand risks is, as equal as your regulatory risks. Because a regulatory risk is triggering even the brand risk. Same way, operational risks triggering the brand risks. So we need to play around that three bucket very effectively to demonstrate that what is the brand risk, compliance risks, and the operational risks due to the technology risks.
Good, very good. Suhas, any quick thought about if you are advising a company and helping them in presenting the board, how do you address these issues? What should be the first 2 slides?
Yeah, so one part is definitely we need to convince a board that when we are investing in cybersecurity, as like other business functions, there will not be direct some percentage of ROI on that. So cybersecurity is getting measured, or its success is getting measured on how you are protecting your operations, how you are protecting your brand, and how you are protecting your assets from the external and new age security risk. So these are the 2 messages which we need to convey to board at the first set, that ROI is directly proportional to brand value and protecting business. And at that time, whatever goes wrong in terms of emerging attacks, if there are any targeted attacks, at that time, some portion may get into business loss and brand loss. and that is a very big risk. These are the messages which we need to convey to board. And later on, say, what are the mandatory things from the compliance perspective? What are the mandatory things which we need to apply in terms to secure our systems externally as well as internally? So that piece which we need to convey them very effective. I think these are the two things: ROI part, and second piece is security in terms of emerging threat and it can loss.
You want to, one good point is like you should not venture to really quantify the ROI, because what you are saying is it is not possible in cybersecurity. I totally agree with you. So Manoj, just taking it.
Sorry to interrupt here. Here, one thing I think important, we need to create a platform before going to the board, connecting the different people. One thing I always tell them, convey to them that, cybersecurity is like a RV, right? You need to keep it ready to address the different diverse situations. And you are not investing that you are going to get attacked, but if there is an attack, how to deal with that and how to quickly recover from that.
Yeah, very good, very strong point. But I wish every board understands it. If there is no threat or no attack happening for the last 10 years, people will think that no, I don't want to invest in security because nothing has happened for the last. But anyway, but that's a very good, very strong thought. So Manoj, just taking a thread from the same desired state, because the word desired state is not coined by me. It is actually the ISACA, when they defined information security governance. They have told very clearly that information security governance is nothing but attaining the desired state. See, the desired state of information security is not constant. It will always change from the taking into account the threat, the regulations, the business, all sort of things. It is a very dynamic, and at any point in time, there has to be a calibrated effort from going one point to the next point. For the same requirement, because one cannot attain the optimal thing in the beginning. So that is where the question of continuous improvement program, the maturity model for cyber security comes to the picture. And that is where I have always realized, I have been presenting to the board for the last 10-15 years. So I have realized that really makes them feel very good, that if you quantify those things, that I am in 2, I want to go to 5. So they would always say that yes, we need to go to 5, and you have to have a decision calculus telling them that 2 to 5, if you go, you need to do these things to go from 2 to 5. So what's your thought on this match? In fact, if you search on the internet, you will find my maturity model. In my PhD thesis, I had actually devised one maturity model for cybersecurity. You can find it. That's now in public. So what's your thought on continuous improvement program, maturity model on cybersecurity?
Well, so this is very good question, and in fact, the leadership team, they want to have clear visibility where we are, what we planned for, and where we will be in next 2-3 years. So what I did when I joined this organization, so there was cybersecurity maturity assessment, which was very quick one, and on the basis of that, we are into cybersecurity transformation program version 2.0, where we have different 35 work streams on data protection, regulation, security awareness, this, that. So there are 35 work streams, and on the basis of work streams, we defined the prioritization, and then a 3-year plan with quantification. Today we are at 1.2. We will be at 3.0 in 2023 March. So this is how I'm driving this continuous improvement. And one more thing that there are very important KPI. This is my personal opinion that the restoration time and the productivity, these two are now going to be very important KPI from leadership team to CISO, because nevertheless 1 minute. So nevertheless, we have been attacked or not, we were compromised or not, the fact remains same that at any moment of time we can get into disaster. And the maturity model is nothing but being ready for worst. So how soon we can recover? That is
Very
first,
excellent, excellent.
and second,
I like that.
and second, how productive we are. Suppose business is coming to go live with an application, and we are taking 15 days, 30 days for doing VAPT, getting the points addressed. So how tricky approach? Suppose I have WAF and some SQL injection is there, so we can
Yeah,
take a chance.
very good thought. So what I'll come to you, Suhas. So excellent thought. Like what is driving home is failing is imminent. What is required to make sure that you don't fail to get up. So that's what is more important, and that's to be factored into the maturity model. So Suhas, yes, you had something to say.
Yeah. So to add on Manoj's point, many times I have seen that when we are submitting any report on the security finding, security gap, and applications are supposed to go live in a day or two, business team comes and says that, boss, what are the high vulnerabilities? We fix that. If possible, we need to go live. That is business requirement. And most of the time, business teams are considering security is a many times showstopper to go live. And this is very important aspect at that time to convince these business stakeholders that if we go live with certain risks, at that time there is a risk to get attacked. And getting that point corrected and telling this to business stakeholders that we can't go live unless and until we remediate this critical or high findings. And at that time, there is a large debate most of the time. Maybe from your side also, you might have experienced that. And we have seen multiple times that in that forum, CISO team and business team, they are fighting. Then we need to fix this. Who will be responsible? And business team is saying, I need to go live tomorrow. And there is a huge business impact. If I don't go live tomorrow, another competitor will launch these services, insurance services or banking services, and this is a very critical decision or situation where we need to take decisions.
Excellent, excellent. Suhas. Yeah, actually, you will win. It's a very perpetual battle. You don't win the battle with this kind of thing that who is responsible. We should rather, you will win only when the business tells us that don't allow any business unless you are very satisfied. So that is where you will actually win the game. So most of the times, personally, I have felt that a couple of my businesses, they tell me, sir, don't ignore anything. It may take 2-3 days time, but make sure that your team sees everything. So these are the things. So since in the topic is economics, so all of us are kind of convinced now, till now, that there is a need for investment, more investment in cybersecurity. And number two is there is a need for convincing the management that there is a need for investment. And when I say that investment, every investment has to have certain kind of a return on investments. So how do you write before I go to that? So let me ask Dr. Lopamudra one question. So when all of us have been talking about see anywhere when there is a lot of investment, we have to think of that where we should smartly do things so that I don't spend my investment is less, but my utility remains intact. So the question comes that whether I will buy solutions or build solutions, whether I'll go to the cloud or not go to the cloud. So I have no way to compromise on cyber security because the threats are there, compliance are there, I have to do. So this two decision has to be taken, buy or build, cloud or not cloud. From an economics perspective, what do you think? Quickly, in say 1 minute or 30 seconds, your opinion on this. I want to take this opinion for all these fours, understanding all these panelists, understanding that what's their view on buy and build cloud or not cloud.
It is a business risk driven decision based on the assessment what data you are going to put in cloud and what type of cloud. All cloud are not similar, right? You may have private, you may have co-location hosting, you may have a kind of public cloud, or you may host your own cloud also. So based of the data business sector you are in, what kind of regulatory impact on a particular set of data, you can take the action.
So Binit, while Madam has told about the security, different type of cloud, I am asking a very simple question: the economics of it. If somebody tells that going to the cloud save my money, building a solution saves my money instead of buying a solutions, So how do you address these issues? Would you, if you are a CISO of a big company, how would you be your strategy? Hiring a couple of guys and build a DLP solution of yourself and putting everything on the cloud so that you don't invest in infrastructure. How do you do that? How do you handle such kind of issue?
So again, sir, as I think Ms. Lopa Mundra have actually picked up a very relevant point. So the kind of data, so that plays a very vital role while you're moving on to the cloud. But again, to your point, what kind of, again, while you're moving to a cloud, you need to have a similar kind of an infrastructure, the similar set of controls that you have for your on-prem setup. Now, if you say that if I am moving on to a cloud and I am going to get relief about from the controls, again, it clearly outlines from the shared responsibility matrix that okay, the data is yours, the controls has to be defined by your organization. Now again, the kind of control environment what you want to create, it again depends upon the organization called based on the information that you're putting onto the cloud. Because as we all know, the cloud, when we talk about, is somebody else's computer where you're hosting your data. Now the environment what you want to create, and then the kind of investment, it all have to be taken into account based on the data set that you're putting onto the cloud, and whether it actually, so while I have done some of the exercises myself in the past, I have seen the investment that I put onto the cloud is much more than what I have to do onto a on-prem setup. So, and then looking at that, and this is largely based on the 5-year roadmap. If I see, if I have to hold the similar set of data and then everything onto the cloud, it looks like that the cost is a little more on the higher side. So given that perspective, I generally advise that okay, let's put on to a on-prem setup if in case. But if in case it's a business requirement and it's critical and then you cannot live by it and then you have to go, then obviously there's no choice. The organization have to actually go ahead and invest onto the cloud. So I think that are the key pointers that I would consider.
Understood. So what both of you have been resonating each other, and what saying is, don't take it as the cost issue. It is rather you should decide on the requirement of the business and then decide whether it should go this way or that way. But if
Yes.
because
I have
normally
one point here. I have
tell
one
me.
point here. Cloud is not cost cutting. Cloud is cost efficiency. Cloud may give me a better security also, because security may not be the core business wings of the business, and we can have it from third party
Okay, fine.
association.
So fine.
And
So
uh,
yeah, tell me, madam. Okay.
yeah, and while we are talking about the control, what is the major gap in industry? Generally, we try to align the in-house control with the cloud control, but the technology is different. Basically, we need to see the current control set within the organization. What is the objective it is meeting? Take that objective in the cloud environment and see that it's meeting or not. I cannot
Understood.
replicate the control.
So actually, cloud is hijacking the issue. So we will not discuss on cloud. We'll discuss on only buy and build SWAS. So because when the cloud comes, everybody get excited about so many things. CASB, so many things they start talking about, because we know that we have so many things in cloud. So SWAS, very straight questions: buy or build.
Yeah, it's for the cloud part, it's buy.
No cloud. It's buy or build. It's a solution. You have been telling us so many solutions to buy or do that. I can think of hiring few people and build a solution for myself instead of buying a solutions. What the organization should do.
Yeah. So for these, there are certain components which we need to buy and certain components we need to build or automate. That is very important. Strategically, you can't buy or rely completely on vendors. Some components you can buy, some components which we can build, and in-house capability development is essential. This is the hybrid model is required to success.
Good. So Manoj, just 1 second. I'll come back to. So Manoj, just one thing. Let me make it more specific. Let's say there is a requirement of SIM. SIM has been there for the last 15 years. It has stood the test of the time, and it is doing something which is known to people. It has promised to do so many things, but it is doing what everybody knows. So and every year everybody has to pay the license fee. It runs it to $500,000 for big companies like any big companies. So all of our security people, all of us spent our lifetime in security. Hire 10 guys, developed an SIM, and serve the organizations. And that will be a new generation SIM, which is having intelligence, which is having all data science is inbuilt into it, so we can do that. So what's your quick thought on it, Manoj? Would you build a SIM, buy an SIM and perpetually give the license fee for years?
Well, I think since we are transforming from strong to resilient, we should equally think of not only buying but getting the things as service, and we should give equal opportunity to the startup organizations.
So good. So Binit, you have pointed that hybrid model. Everybody is talking about an hybrid model. Hybrid model is nothing but a very political way of dealing these situations.
Correct. So I think I'll come to your buy and build question. I think the important piece is the go to market. So and then placing that control on your organization. So I think that plays a vital role. So if in case I have a time window of let's say 6 to 8 months where I can invest time in terms of getting something built up right from the scratch and then put it onto my on-prem, I think I would prefer to do that. But if in case there is a business requirement where something has to go in immediately without having much of time window available for you, obviously then you do not have a choice. You have to obviously go ahead and get into SIM. Now if in case a regulator comes and tells you that okay, you need to deploy a SIM, you need to have an SIM, you cannot wait for 6 months 8 months till the time you hire people and then you build it right on. Obviously you have to go for a hybrid model.
Totally understood. So I think I don't need to give my opinion on it, but I think the thoughts are very clear that you cannot ignore building a solutions, but it all needs on the requirement, the time, the go-to-market attitude for the company, because you can't just build it for yourself. You need to really monetize those things. So you need to have a go-to-market strategy for those things. So now coming to that, over and above whatever we are doing, and Manoj said a very good point that failing is imminent. We would always fail because the kind of thing which is happening. In that case, all of us have been resorting to cyber insurance. Cyber insurance, some product which is really gaining importance in the market. So my specific questions, and I have dealt with cyber insurance for a long time and gone so many things into that. So if at all I have invested, let's say 100 crore, and let me not quantify, a substantial amount in technology, people in cyber security, and convince the management that I'm trying to take care of this thing. Now I go to the same management and tell that I need to pay another premium of say 5 crore or 6 crore a year. They would rather say that only pay 5 crore, don't have this Department of Information Security, because anyway they would take care of your risk. So how do you handle such kind of issue in convincing? I'm only trying to play a devil's advocate role. So madam, you have been a SME on cyber insurance, so your thought on how do you approach cyber insurance?
So good thing is that most of the cases now board and the legal department is very much aware about the requirement of the cyber insurance, and it is a business part of business requirement like any other insurance you are having to protect the business. Now the thing is that cyber insurance is something, what is the sum assured you are looking for based on your business portfolio. You need to decide that your premium depend on that. What is the reasonable security you have that place? While you are declaring that is defining the level of your premium. What are the attack you have faced in past? That is another parameter while you are declaring that. Also, a single cyber insurance cannot protect the you against the cyber threat. It's a combination of cyber insurance, and then fidelity insurance and error or omission. Because if anything happened due to the error or omission of employees, cyber insurance is not completely going to cover them. So same way, fidelity insurance is required if rogue employees are there, and due to that you get that issue. So we need to focus on that and build our case study and how you are addressing each bucket, because most of the company already have the error omission as well as your fidelity insurance. So look at that other part, what you need to include, because some of the cyber insurance also covering the error and omission part. So that way you can balance it.
Understood from the madam that cyber insurance is growing, and what she is saying is there is a direct correlation between the threat your cyber posture and the premium which you are going to eventually pay. And there are liability side of it and asset side of it also. Thank you very much for your very active participations and excellent thoughts. It's a good learning for me. So we would definitely talk more about this if there is any opportunity comes. But the topic per se, the economics of cybersecurity, is excellent. I thank the organizers for at least thinking about a subject like this. So thank you very much.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.